Are we playing? I can't see. I got such a glare. I've got blinds coming to so I won't look so Casper and blend in with my tops. But anyway, hey y'all, it's Whitney Nicely, and we're up to my third deal. I feel like we've been talking forever, and we're just at my third little deal. Okay, so what happened? I was out and about. I've been posting on Facebook for 4 months that I buy houses, and I'm looking for this, and I'm looking for that, and I'm looking for this, and I'm looking for that, and blah, 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 blah. So my cousin sent me a message, and this is a cousin that I kind of need a map to figure out how we're actually cousins. Like, we know we're cousins, but it's one of those that, we both got to figure out now, who is it that you know? Who is it that you're related to? Who is your mama and who is her mama? And that, that doesn't really go into my family tree, but it's okay. We're all cousins anyway, right? So it's not like a cousin that I grew up with knowing that it was my brother's or my uncle's kid. Like, this is a kind of far out there in the tree cousin, all right? But we were Facebook friends. Why not? So he sent me a message one day, and he was like, hey, Whit, I've got this house, and I don't live in it. He didn't tell me. But as the story went on, I didn't even know this, but he was married at one point. And his wife, at the time, wanted this house in this subdivision, and they weren't married anymore. And the person that he was living with now did not want this house in this subdivision. Everybody has a cousin that they're kind of sort of not related to, right? And everybody knows somebody that bought a house, lived in a house, until the person who really wanted the house left, and then they were left with the house, okay? Jason, my husband, was like that, okay? He was married. I don't know if he wanted that house or if she wanted that house, but anyway, she left and he was left with the house, and he was like, I don't want this house anymore. And I sure as shit didn't want her old house. So we had to get rid of it, right? Everybody knows somebody that has been in that kind of situation, all right? So here's one person, my cousin, who had a house that he still had, but he didn't have the wife anymore. That could be two different people, two different motivated sellers for you to go after. People who are your family, and people who have houses but don't have the spouse that actually wanted the house. Ooh, we should come up with a rhyme for that. Y'all work on that for me, okay? But anyway, my cousin had a house, but he didn't have the spouse that wanted the house, so I bought the house. Golly day, we're getting good at this rhyme. No mouse. Anyway, so he called me, and on St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, I got 2 houses under contract. One with my sorority sister and one with my cousin. Okay? And that was the deal on his house. He had been living wherever, and this house was empty. And he didn't care about it. He didn't want it. He just wanted it gone. He wanted to move on with his life. He didn't want to think about that ex-wife or that house ever again. And I said, all right, no problem. I'll take it. So I told him that it would be 3 months before I'd start making the payments on it. I told him that I was going to do a rent to own on it, and it was in like prime location. Okay, guys, this house is back in my hometown, and I grew up in Powell, Tennessee. All right, and that's spelled Powell, but it's pronounced Pal, Powell. Okay, it's not Powell. But in Powell, Tennessee, we have one subdivision that basically was a cow pasture until the 70s, and then it became the biggest subdivision in the whole county, all right, Broadacres. And it's basically where anybody who was everybody lived in Powell until they started building little satellite subdivisions on around Powell. But when I was growing up, I mean, half of my elementary school, half my middle school, half my high school, everybody lived in Broadacres. Or everybody knew 18 people who did live in Broadacres, okay? It was just like the neighborhood. No matter what street you were on, you knew somebody who lived there, all right? And it's a big neighborhood, but it was in the 70s, built in the 70s. So they're older houses, which is perfect, right? So I had prime location, I had a motivated seller, and I had an empty house. Not on the market. Perfect! Absolutely perfect. The thing that wasn't perfect was this house hadn't been updated since the 70s. And I neglected to think, I thought that just because it was in Powell, it was in Broadacres, and it was the right price, I thought people would overlook a dirty kitchen. And it wasn't dirty, it was just white on white on white on white on white. It was just kind of boring. Okay? And my cousin wasn't going to fix it. He didn't even want to drive over there and meet me. All right? Which is kind of convenient. That means I could do whatever I wanted to with it. So I had this house from March 17th to the 1st of May. And I had tons of people look at it. I had tons of people who were interested in it. I had tons of people who wanted to do something with it, but everybody kept saying that the kitchen's too outdated, the bathrooms need to be updated, and there's just a funky smell in the basement. And I was really disappointed because this is my third deal. My first deal was chucking right along. We were about to close on it and get cashed out. My second deal was clicking right along with my sorority sister. She moved out. We had people looking. We had money coming in. Like, it was good. So I was stuck with this third deal, and I was like, God, what am I doing wrong? What is not happening here? What is the problem? And the day before, like when I knew we were going to close on that first deal and I knew I was going to get to keep the $2,000 that I got, and I was going to get another check for about $13,000. It clicked in my head in the shower. I have great ideas in the shower. Clicked in my head in the shower, and it was like I was like, I should flip that house. If everybody says that the kitchen's ugly and the bathrooms need to be redone, I'll just put new kitchen and 2 new bathrooms in it. Pfft, how hard could it be? I've been flipping houses with Mom and Dad for the last 5 years. I'll do it by myself. So that's what I did. I took my $13,000, my $15,000 from my first deal. I cashed that check, and I immediately started ripping out the kitchen in the Powell house. Well, I won't say immediately. Let's say we closed on Tuesday on my first deal. By Friday, we were ripping it out. And what I did on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday is I called my cousin and I said, all right, look, I know I said that I'd start making your payments, but I've got this problem. The kitchen and the bathrooms are ugly, but I have a solution. I'm going to flip it, no cost to you. All you need to do is give me another 3 months to make the payments so that I can flip the house, get it back on the market, get it advertised, and get it gone. And he was like, well, you know, I was really excited because you said you'd make the payments in 3 months, but now, you know, I've made the payments for the last 2 months. And I said, I know, and I've been advertising it. I've been doing everything I can, but all the feedback says the kitchen's ugly. And he said, yeah, I know, that kitchen is really ugly. I said, so we really have 2 choices here. I can back out of my contract and you can keep the house. I advertised it for you for free. You're welcome. That's the first choice. You can move back into it. You can do whatever you want with it. That's fine. Second choice is you keep making the payments for 3 more months. Keep the electric on. Keep the water on. I'll come in. I'll put my money into flipping it. And then I'll sell it and start making the payments. Or you can go flip it. You can put your money into flipping it. And you can do all the work. So what do you want to do? And honestly, guys, we have another cousin who is still my kind of far off cousin, but the 2 of them know how and why they are cousins. Like, they hang out. They're real cousins. They get along, and they do Christmas and Easter and birthdays and everything together. They're on that side of the family together, right? And the second cousin is a flipper. He does exactly what I do. He flips houses. All right? So I halfway expected my original cousin that I was talking to, I halfway expected him to say, oh, it's cool. We're just going to let Wesley flip it. Thanks for advertising it. No big deal, whatever. But he didn't. And I don't know why he didn't. Maybe Wesley was busy or something. I don't know that. But he didn't. He said, all right, let's do it for another 3 months. I'll keep making the payments for 3 months. You put the work into it, you flip it, and then you can start making the payments in a total of 6 months. All right. I wasted 2 months, which means I was on the clock for 4 months, and I was really under the pressure at this point. All right. So I renegotiated. We wrote up another contract. And so let's say that was on like a Wednesday. On Thursday, my attorney wrote up a big contract. I met back with my cousin on Thursday. And on Friday, I went and basically filed a mechanic's lien on the house, which was going to protect me in case, I put a bunch of money into this house that I didn't own. How am I going to be protected? Well, I put a lien on the house, all right, that said I had first right of refusal. I had the option on it. I clouded the title before I started tearing this house apart. All right, that is key. You definitely want to do that. Another thing you want to do that I don't think I've mentioned yet is when you get a house under contract, when you get a seller that agrees to sell you the house, you need to get a title opinion run. And a title opinion is not a full-blown title search, but it's just a surface level to say, hey, what kind of liens are on this house? And the title clerk or the attorney or whoever you're using will come back and say, well, there's a mortgage with Chase or Wells Fargo, and you will probably say, okay, they told me that. Most of the time, your seller will tell you any kind of liens or encumbrances or mortgages or anything that's on the property. Most of the time, there's not going to be any weird ones, but if there are weird ones, it'll come up in a title opinion before you get too far into the process. So that's a side note there. Okay, but back to this story. So on Friday, we tore out the kitchen. We busted up the old tile in the floor. We carried everything out of the bathrooms, stripped it down to the 2x4s. Down to the sheetrock. Took the sheetrock out and everything. And I realized I had a mess. So my dad had flipped some houses, and we had a guy named Lonnie. And Lonnie is amazing. I knew Lonnie. He can do anything and everything. He prefers plumbing. But he can do everything. He's a handyman. He's a jack of all trades. He is absolutely amazing. And I, luckily, have a general contractor's license. And Lonnie is not licensed, but I could subcontract him. All right? And just file a 1099 or W-2 or whatever it is that people file at the end of the year when they have people subcontract. So I had that covered. And I also pulled the permits to put new bathrooms in. And we didn't change any wiring or plumbing in the kitchen, so I don't think that I pulled a permit there. All we did is put new cabinets and new appliances, new granite in. We didn't do any, we didn't take down any walls or anything like that. If you're taking down walls, if you're rerouting wiring, if you're rerouting plumbing, you definitely have to have permits and inspections. Okay, but we were basically just replacing the pretty stuff, so I didn't have them. Okay, so I called Lonnie on Friday, and I was like, hey, man, I have a mess going on. Will you come over and look at it? And he didn't have anything going on Friday afternoon, so he came over and looked at it, and he was like, yeah, you got a mess, for sure. He said, I'll be back on Monday. I'll bring sheetrock, and we'll get this thing done. And I'm telling y'all, that was the middle of May. Lonnie and I worked side by side, ripping stuff out of the house. I was painting, he was plumbing. I even hired painters, but I still painted some so that it was going. I learned how to hang sheetrock. Lonnie taught me how to put the grout, not the grout, that's in tile. But when you put the sheetrock up and you put the putty stuff in between and then you smooth out the lines, Lonnie taught me how to do that. I held the sheetrock in place while he screwed it. Lonnie taught me how to do so much. And this is the house that we replaced all the doors in it. We replaced all the closet doors, all the interior doors. We did not replace any windows or anything like that. We replaced all of the outdated light fixtures. And Nick is my electrician. He came over and did the light fixtures and changed all the switches out because they were old, almond, and he changed them to white. But then I went through, I put all the switch plates back on. I put all of the vent things back in. I held the appliances or the light fixtures while they worked them and redid them. We replaced all the fans. I was basically the helper. because I even as a general contractor, I don't have any real skills with the hammer or a screwdriver. I picked up some serious drilling skills though. And in a pinch, I could help move stuff, I could help do stuff, but I wasn't the main one in charge. But I'm telling you, Nick and Lonnie and Lonnie brought somebody to help him when he really needed real help, not just me help. And Nick had 2 helpers with him because he needed real help and not just me help. I was kind of in the way sometimes. But I was over there with them from sun up to sundown. I mean, I brought breakfast. I went and ran and got lunch. I'd run to Lowe's. I was a gopher. I'd do anything and everything just to keep them going, keep them on track and on task. And y'all, we flipped that house in 2 weeks. 2 weeks to tear it out and put it back together, and I was exhausted. Every time I tell this story, I tell you that I skipped my manicure for 2 weeks because I just didn't have time to do it. I did not have time to leave the job site because every time I left, I just knew that they wouldn't finish whatever it was, or they'd find that somebody would call them, or something. I had to be there. I felt like I had to be there to make sure that they kept going and kept moving and kept going at it. So we put new floor, new cabinets, new counters, new sinks, new light fixtures, new appliances. We painted the whole house. We got rid of the funky smell in the basement, replaced the baseboards down there, the floor down there, we ripped out a shower that was in the basement bathroom and just made it a bigger bathroom because it was just a stand-up shower and it really wasn't amazing anyway. We still left the plumbing so that if somebody did want to put it back in, they could, but we just did not. And then upstairs in 2 bathrooms, we replaced 2 tubs, 2 surrounds, 2 vanities, 2 new toilets, new floor in there, new mirrors, new vanities, new faucets, new doors, new hardware. This is the house that I learned how to change the doorknobs. All right. So if you've got, doorknobs or levers, I can change those. Because that was some little dinky job that I was either going to pay somebody to do or I was going to figure it out, and I did it. So I figured it out and I did it. I had my little drill. They made fun of me because I had, a woman's toolkit, but whatever, they also wanted to borrow mine. I painted the shutters on the front of the house. I learned how to take down doors. I learned how to do so much stuff at this house. And by the end of June, we had all the appliances in. I mean, we did the hardcore stuff in 2 weeks, straight 2 weeks. And then it took another probably 2 weeks to get the appliances in because I ran out of money. I ran out of money in the middle of my flip, which is another motivated seller. All right. I lost sleep because I ran out of money. I paid the guys in those 2 weeks. I probably spent $15,000, and remember, that was the money that I had to flip. So in this time, while I'm dirty, wearing my overalls, flipping this house, I got guys running all around the house doing different stuff. The people that bought my sorority sister's house actually came to this third house that I was flipping because I didn't have time to leave. I didn't have time to go get my nails done. I didn't have time to go negotiate a contract. So they came and met me at this house in Powell to sign the contract. They gave me a cashier's check there, and I used Cam Scanner on my phone to take pictures of everything. So we did it all there, and I got $8,000. I went over to my sorority sisters the next day, gave her $1,000, so I had $7,000. And I put that $7,000, got the guys back to working. We were pretty much done when I went through the $15,000, but I still had to order the appliances. I still had to have them installed, and there's always just little stuff that you got to do there at the end. And we went through the next $7,000 also. So by the end of June, it was all done, and Jason's oldest, I think, maybe the youngest, I don't remember which one of them, but they were playing baseball in Gulf Shores, and so we had to leave. I got the house flipped, put the sign out in the yard, landscaping, we did that too. cut down a bunch of trees, freshened up the flower beds. That went through a lot of my $7,000 that we got. But I put it out on the market, and I was stressed, and I was unhappy, and I didn't want to be at the beach, and I sure shit didn't want to be watching these Little League baseball games. But I felt like I needed to do that. So that's what I did. And while we were there, Jason and I had a lot of heart-to-hearts on why I was flipping and what did I think I was going to accomplish, and I didn't need to be this stressed out, and, there was other things that I could be doing with my time, and, he's saying all this to me, and I'm going, dude, I freaking love flipping. I love being stressed out like this over real estate. I love getting in here and doing these deals. I know this is going to work out, but I had all this exterior pressure on me from him saying basically that you screwed up and this isn't going to work and nobody's going to buy this house and you've wasted all this time and energy and money. Second time he said this to me in 6 months. I ought to just... But I knew that this was going to be good, and I knew that this was going to be possible, and I knew that this was going to work out, and I knew that this was my calling. Like, this is where I was supposed to be. No matter how much of this I was hearing, I was like this. But every once in a while, it'd get into my brain, So this is not a very good vacation to be on for either one of us. But by, I think it was maybe Wednesday or Thursday, also while we're on this vacation, we're at the beach, right? Baseball games, beach, trying to have a good time, trying not to kill each other. He's just my boyfriend at this time. We're not even married. I'm trying to think, maybe my mom will come get me and I can just break up with him and be done with this. On maybe Sunday or Monday of this week, and this is probably what really got him stirred up to saying that I've made a big mistake. So, while I'd been flipping this house, like, half of my high school graduating class lives in this subdivision. So they all stopped by and we're hanging out and it's all good. Well, one of them called me or sent me a Facebook message or a text or something in the meantime, and he was like, oh my gosh, girl, like, somebody's carrying your new appliances out of that house. Do you want me to go get them and stop them? And I was like, well, yeah. What do you mean somebody's carrying my appliances out? They were like, yeah, definitely. I saw somebody loading up a truck last night at that house. And I was like, oh my gosh, call the cops. So, but that's my immediate reaction. And in my gut, I was still like, that's kind of weird. This is not one of the friends that I'd talked to while I'd been flipping. This is not one of the friends that had been over there helping me flip it. I wonder if they're at the right house. So Drew Ogan, who was the basketball coach's son, he had been over the house a lot. Tyler Williams had been over the house doing the landscaping. I pretty much hired my graduating class. Whatever anybody was doing in PAL, I had them come do that to my house. Mikey Crowder painted it for me. I used the local boys. So I called Drew and I was like, hey man, somebody else just called me and said they were stealing the appliances out of my house. Will you run by there? And he was like, absolutely, I'm on my way. Probably just left breakfast with his family to go check on my house. Super awesome, guys. I highly recommend flipping where you know people. But he went over there and he was like, hey, wait, I'm in the kitchen and everything's here. It looks gorgeous. I like what you did with it. And I was like, oh my God, thank you. Okay, good. So nobody stole my appliances. And he was like, no, house looks great. It was locked up. Looks good. You want me to leave a light on or anything? And I was like, yeah, sure, that'd be sweet. But then so if that was on Monday or Tuesday that happened, and Jason's over here saying, I know, I told you shouldn't be doing this, and you shouldn't let people go through the house that you don't know, and just all the time. So if that happened on Sunday or Monday, then Monday or Tuesday of that same week, I had a lady call, and her and her husband wanted to go look at the house. And I said, okay, great, go on, look at it, make sure everything looks good, call me when you're leaving. And she said, okay, I will. So she called me when she left, and she was like, hey, my kids are at my parents'. Do you mind if we go get my kids and my parents and bring them back? And I was like, nah, sure, go ahead. Just call me when you leave and don't steal anything. And she was like, okay, great. So she called me back and she was like, hey, I took my parents, took the kids over. Everybody likes it. We're going to think about it. We'll call you back in the morning. And I was like, okay. Not really thinking anything about it. Well, the next day rolled by and she didn't call. Then Thursday rolled by and she called and she was like, okay, we want to buy the house. And I was like, great. How much can you pay per month? What kind of money can you put down? And she was like, no, actually, we're going to sell our house, which is what happened on my first house. So my ears perked up. We're going to sell our house and move into this one. And I was like, oh, okay, awesome. So you want to rent it in the meantime? She was like, no, actually, my parents are going to buy our old house and we're going to use that money to buy this one. And I was like, huh. Okay. And she was like, great. So what do we need to do? And I was like, well, I guess I should send you a purchase and sale contract because you're basically just going to be buying it, like not moving in before you buy it. And she was like, yeah, absolutely. Okay. So I sent her a purchase and sale contract. I ended up selling the house. I think my list price on it was like $174. We took $169 from them because they were going to just cash us out straight. And we went, that was on Thursday or Friday of my vacation, the last week of June. So I left an empty house, freshly flipped, no prospects in sight, and I came back home a week later under contract. And I know I've just kind of glazed over it, but from the middle of May to the end of June, I went through hell and back on this house. Okay? Like, there's not enough time in the world and you wouldn't care enough to hear what all I did go through on this house. But this house was a pain in the ass. But I survived it. Came home, July went through fine. We had the inspection because the mortgage broker, wanted an inspection, wanted an appraisal. Inspection came back and I had to fix the gutters, so I had to put, whatever I had left of my $7,000 went into getting new gutters on the house and replacing some of the soffit and maybe some of the fascia and all of the gutters. And maybe one or two other little things, but my $7,000 was gone, my $15,000 was gone. I was like about to come out of pocket on this deal on this house. Appraisal came back and we were like right on the money. Like right on the money, like maybe 168 or something. I don't know, I have to look it up. I'll have to look it up for you, but my cousin owed like 130 or 135, and I'd taken it over for what he owed. I'd taken over his payments. So I got his house in March. So he made April, May, and June, and then we extended. So he made June, July, August, and September, right? I didn't have a payment until October on this house. So July went by, August went by, and it just takes a while to get to get the ball rolling on these things. And we had the 4th of July in there, maybe something else. But on August 27th, 2014, we all met at a title company out in West Knoxville, a closing agent. My cousin had to go because he had the mortgage. He had to sign off on the mortgage. My buyers had to go because they were going to be buying my cousin's house. Their parents had to go because their parents were going to be buying their house, and we just set it all up together. I had to go because I was sitting there in the middle trying to say, I want my money back. I just want my money. And it was a learning lesson for the title company because I had clouded the title and I was getting an assignment. There was no agents involved. And I'll tell you, I framed a lot of deals, okay? Can you tell that? So this is the house that I flipped. That's the kitchen before, and that was the kitchen after. Can you see it? Looked a lot better second time. That was the house there in Powell. You can see it. And my check was for $23,000. I had 15 and 7 in it, so I made $1,600. Not exactly exciting, is it? I worked on this thing from March 17th to August 29th, not the 27th. And I made $1,600. But I flipped a house. I got experience. I learned a lot of lessons. I learned a lot about what to do, what to say, how to negotiate, and I still made money. I got all of my money back that I had invested, and I still made money. Just barely. Just by the tip of my nose did I make money, but I did make money. And the record will show that I made $23,600. But just like on the TV shows, when they show you that they made $20,000, $50,000, $100,000, they don't ever show you the net they make. They show you the gross that they make, right? And in this, I flipped a house by myself without my parents, which shot me like a rocket launcher into more deals, more flips, more money, more leads. So trust me when I say, if you're in the middle of a flip right now, you got to keep going. Something's going to break, something's going to happen, something's going to get the ball rolling again. This is going to be good. It's going to be really good. People in PAL still remember this house that I flipped because I talked about it on Facebook all day, every day for a long, long time. And going back, there's some things on this house that I wouldn't have done. You know, maybe I would have left the floor in the kitchen. Maybe I would have left the cabinets and just replaced the countertops, replaced the hardware instead of something else. Like, there's lots of things that could have been done differently on this house, but that's what I did. And that's how it ended up. So that's my third deal, and I'll be back in a little bit to tell you about my fourth. Bye, y'all.